How's everybody doing today? Welcome to our Hot Take CS and Sales Leader Roundtable. My name is Chris Dishman. I am the Senior Vice President of Global Customer Success at Catalyst Totango. And we have a great panel here today to cover some hot topics. So joining us today, we have Kevin McIntyre, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at DealFront. Hey, Kevin. We have Madeline Dupree, VP of Customer Success from Aircall, and Rashmi Chari, head of global customer success at ThousandEyes, which is part of Cisco. So, kind of setting the stage for us, more and more business leaders are talking about sales and customer success together because they know that alignment of those teams working together will drive customer value, customer results, and then ultimately impact our retention, our expansion, and all of that is the key to really unlocking the predictable growth. So that is, in a sense, customer-led growth, right? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. How do we make sure that we're getting those teams aligned? What are we doing to help drive initiatives and responsibility for the joint team to work together to really drive that predictable growth? Okay, so to get things started, we're going to start with a polling question, right? And I'm going to get a quick hot take. We're going to go around the panel here. And the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the strength of the CS and sales partnership in your organization? So 1 would be not the greatest, and 10 would be we are perfectly good. So let's quickly go around the horn. Let's start with Kevin. Kevin, kind of give us a 1 to 10 scale for you guys.
Sure. And thanks, Chris. And it's a pleasure to be here alongside Rashmi and Madeline. And thanks, everybody, for joining. An absolute pleasure to be here today. I would say if it's based purely on the relationships between the team, probably closer to an 8 or a 9. But when you actually start to unpack how they work together and how their incentives are aligned. So if you look at our two selling teams, new business and CS alignment, I'd say it's probably more of a 5 or a 6.
Okay.
And on account management, where we have professionals aligned to driving expansion in partnership with customer success, it's about an 8 or a 9.
Got it. Okay, good clarification. Madeline, let's go with you next.
I would say 6, and we have a pretty good plan in place to get to 8 by mid Q2.
Awesome. All right, we're going to unpack some of that here in a few minutes. Rashmi, what about you?
I'm going to thread the needle and go with a 7. But I will say there's a correlation with the customers that have the largest account spend, the sales reps and CSMs tied to it. Those accounts are all a 10 because there's a correlation between account spend and this relationship.
Got it. Segment differentiation there. So that makes total sense. Okay, cool. First of all, let's talk a little bit, and I'd love to hear from each of you just on your background and set the stage for how your CS and sales teams are set up. And if you can clarify some specifics just in roles and responsibilities, the structure, the process of how the sales to CS handoff, maybe who owns expansion and accountability on the post-sale function. So Madeline, let's go ahead and start with you. Kind of give us a sense of how things are set up at Aircall and give us a little background on yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Well, really great to be here. Madeline Dupree, I VP of Customer Success here at Aircall. We are a contact center solution, so cloud-based phones. So we provide the voice that plugs into many of the apps you know and love, your CRM and your help desk. And I run a global team. We have a team of CSM and onboarding specialists, and they are responsible for all things revenue post-signature. So they own upsell, expansion, and renewal. So I reported to a chief sales officer myself, and I consider myself very proud to have a seat at the revenue table.
Awesome. That's great. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. I know you guys have been kind of leading the way in some of that, and you specifically have at Aircall, so that's fantastic. So Kevin, let's go to you. Kind of give us a little bit of background and some of the responsibilities and function and setup there at DealFront.
Sure, absolutely. So Kevin McIntyre, Chief Revenue Officer at DealFront. I joined the organization in September of 2022. So DealFront is, we help sales and marketing professionals discover, engage, and win their next best customer with sales intelligence and web visitor identification solutions. So if you're familiar with other alternatives like ZoomInfo, Cognism, Apollo, Lead Forensics, we play very much in that space. So I oversee the comprehensive sales and customer journey spectrum, from sales development to new business sales, and on the customer side with CSM support in our account management team, and the foundational elements that underpin it with revenue operations and revenue enablement. We are a new brand, and subsequently, not many of you may know of us. We are the result of a merger in late 2022. And this has really presented a unique opportunity in bringing together two customer success organizations on top of what is essentially a heterogeneous customer base of nearly 7,000 customers. So covering that in the appropriate way has certainly been a fun journey over the last kind of year and a half, 2 years or so. Our customer success team, depending on the segment or tier of our customers, has varying responsibility across the kind of the revenue spectrum of responsibilities. And I'm sure we can talk about this later on how teams are incentivized, but the net of it all, our CSMs are highly motivated around NRR and have a component within their variable compensation plan on that. But generally speaking, the expansion side is driven by account management in our upper tier and upper segmentation. So the CSMs holistically focused on onboarding, getting them to a regular pattern of usage, supporting delivering a positive customer experience, and focused on the renewal element of revenue.
Got it. And what, I'm sorry, what was the word you used in there? It was, there was a SAT word you dropped in there that I was like, wait, what? I'm gonna have to go look that up.
Heterogeneous. And if I use that the right way, there are two different types of customers.
Perfect. I'm gonna have to put that one in my back pocket so I can sound better on the next webinar. Okay, so Rashmi, I'm gonna go ahead and jump over to you. Kind of give us a little of your background over at ThousandEyes and how you guys are configured.
Yeah, so just to give a little background on myself, because I feel like a little bit of an imposter, but I have about 20 years of sales experience and have been in the enterprise SaaS world. And when I joined ThousandEyes, which was acquired by Cisco in 2020, I was managing the West Coast enterprise sales team. And then my CRO had handpicked me to run the customer success team, which at that time had 40% people attrition and asymmetrical growth. So when I joined, there was just 18 CSMs, and I'm happy to say that today we have an organization of about 100 people globally. We have 4 different teams. We have a scale CSM team, a strategic CSM team, and then adoption engineers, as well as customer success specialist. And it's essentially the post-sales, the pre-sales model post-sales. And it is allowed us to improve our GRR by about 10 points. And so it's working slowly but surely. And in terms of what the CS team owns, they own everything post-sales. So similar to what you've already heard, everything from the onboarding to expansions and renewals.
Awesome. And by the way, hardly an imposter. This is like the perfect the perfect webinar for you, being formerly a sales leader, now a CS leader, and kind of working to drive kind of growth and retention through that, retention of your team and retention of your customers too. So great to have you on. So, okay, cool. So let's dig into some of the specifics on revenue responsibilities. And specifically, I know we're seeing some of these responsibilities and some of the attributions kind of shifting as it relates to either from sales to CS, vice versa. So Kevin, let's start with you. I mean, you're the CRO in the room today. So, I mean, do you foresee any kind of ownership or change in accountability in the future? And do you intend, or are you guys actively working there at DealFront to try to assign more post-sale revenue to your CS team or responsibility within those teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think a lot of, depending on where your organization is in terms of its size and scale, there's not a one size fits all answer. And hopefully for people here, you'll hear what's working for us or what's not working for us, and you'll figure out hopefully more about how that can apply to your own organization and solution. When I joined DealFront, both kind of legacy organizations that came together to form the merger, CS was accountable for everything post sale. So the renewal and a limited amount of expansion that was coming from those teams. I made the decision in partnership with the rest of the leadership to introduce an account management group, which would be dedicated sales professionals on the right types of customers that have higher propensity to expand. So there's focus. And I'm a big believer that focus drives execution. And if you can drive the right relationship between account management and CS, it's one of those situations where 1 + 1 = 3. And so that is something that is new for us. And we've been on this journey of introducing account management onto the customer side of our business. How I see this evolving, and actually before I mention that, I will revisit the comment I made earlier. Currently, we do have incentive or variable compensation aligned to our customer teams, again, on NRR. And I apologize, I know there was a lot of stuff going on in the comments there, but NRR is net revenue retention, and it's a metric that's assessing essentially how much of the revenue across your customer base are you maintaining net of churn, but adding the growth and any expansion back into that. And kind of the magic number across B2B SaaS, where a lot of organizations want to be, is right around 100% net retention. So if you have 50 million of revenue up for renewal in any given year, you want to be maintaining that net of any revenue erosion and any expansion that you are gaining. And depending on your segment, that benchmark might be different. So we do have our CSMs measured on NRR for the customers that they are assigned to. Now, how I see this potentially evolving, and this is one of my hot takes for this, and maybe a bit controversial statement, but I would actually love to see variable compensation and incentive compensation be placed on product teams for NRR. And you can have the most world-class CS organization in terms of their onboarding, how they're orchestrated with their systems and process, and how they're driving renewal process, how they might be finding areas of opportunity for expansion, whether they're working with sales teams or not. But if the product isn't delivering recurring revenue, the CS team is going to be fighting fires all day mostly. And I don't see this as a trend right now, but it's something that I'm definitely interested in potentially looking at DealFront. And I don't know if there's anybody from DealFront from our product team on this webinar right now, but that is something that I would like to see change in the future, where there's more shared accountability between product teams and customer teams.
Wow. That is a hot take, and I think it's fantastic. And Karen and Kelly, let's log that one away for a future hot take, because I think there's certainly meat behind that. NRR is definitely a company-wide metric. It's something that no one team is able to really impact on their own. And so if we're not driving that together with marketing, with product, with sales, CS, et cetera, you're not going to hit the goal that you're looking for. And the other thing you said, which I think is spot on, is this isn't there's no one size fits all, right? I talk to customers every day about some of the variety and some of the different ways that you can configure teams. I've led teams that have CS only, and you've got separate account management teams. We've got teams where all of it's kind of looped into one thing. So there isn't a one size fits all, but there's definitely some good areas of focus that we can kind of look at here. So, okay, let's keep moving. Rashmi, I'm going to jump over to you. Kind of the same thing. I mean, do you see any ownership or accountability changes in the future? And also, kind of throw in any barriers or challenges that you're seeing in pre and post-sale revenue ownership from your standpoint over at ThousandEyes.
Yeah, if I were to steal one of Kevin's lines of you need focus in order to execute, if there was one thing that we could do to improve our renewal rates and expansion rates, it would be to get onboarding right. And that is a three-legged horse. Really, it's a two-legged horse where we need sales to give the handoff. And I would want shared accountability and having similar KPIs with the professional services team that does the implementation. We've created SLAs and milestones for getting a customer onboarded, and there's a lot of complexity since we've been acquired. Before we were acquired, we had one onboarding cohort, so all customers looked alike. Now we have 9 different onboarding cohorts where it's a strategic deal versus a scale deal. It is a natural business versus embedded business now that we're part of Cisco. So there's a lot of complexities in how to onboard a customer. Some customers buy services, some don't buy services, and that complexity is delaying onboarding, which is delaying adoption, which is creating upstream challenges. So I don't think this is a hot take, but I would love for professional services to have similar KPIs and to be aligned to help get the customer onboarded as quickly as possible versus focused on billable hours.
That's fantastic. Another hot take. So product and professional services folded into the mix. So, okay, Madeline, your turn. Give us your take.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm heated. I love this conversation already. So thank you, both of you. The funny thing is we're trying essentially both of those things here at Aircall. So we have a new product and tech leader, and they've been great partners in terms of how do we take our net retention baseline from the last 2 years and say, okay, what are the pillars we need to build onto it to get to our target, a top line target this year. And a significant pillar is product improvements. And it's a lot of, my time as a CS leader digging into both what are the churn reasons, what is the customer saying, but also close loss reasons. So partnering with my counterpart on the sales team and saying, okay, here are the pillars that's going to help us collectively achieve top line from a product delivery standpoint. And we've actually put forward shared OKRs from a product and CS perspective to ensure that we're climbing towards those pillars. And then I report on that to the board to say, here's how we're collectively delivering to get to this. And here's the result we're seeing. Now that product's delivered, it's on me as a CS leader to ensure my team is delivering that value and selling the forward-looking roadmap, et cetera. So we're actually doing some of that today, and it's working quite well. And then to take it back to, that handover and that sales involvement, one thing we do here that I think works very well, and I inherited it, so I won't take credit for it, but it's a process that I inherited when I started here, is when a deal comes in, and by the way, we consider the customer journey to start at point of trial. So the buyer's journey is very much the customer journey. We're an SMB business. There's a self-trial experience. That's when the customer journey absolutely begins. And whether that's more product-led or AE sales-led, that's the beginning. I mean, we're looking at the customer journey always from that point. And once a deal comes through, and let's say it's managed by an account executive and it closes, there's a 3-month ramp period. So any expansion, contraction, or churn will impact the variable comp of the sales rep in that first 3 months. And that's incentivizing that we close the right type of deals and that we have a powerful handover. And on the other side, I have an onboarding team here, and the onboarding team does have a ramp retention target as part of their variable comp. So hot take, variable comp and onboarding. It's not a significant piece of their kind of ratio, but it's a meaningful piece that they're incentivized by that ramp retention. And that encourages a partnership between pre-sales, the sales team, and then also post-sales, the CSM team, and that handover experience. And that works quite well, so that we've got that accountability. And then once that 3-month period is over, the CSM is fully responsible for expansion, contraction, and churn.
Wow. All right. I love it. So now we got variable comp on product. We got variable comp on onboarding. We got variable comp. I mean, we're just spreading it out across the board. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying initially, right? Which is, hey, NRR is a company-wide metric. It is something that we are all responsible for. And so when we think about, a deal coming in, while it may always seem exciting to get that deal in, if it's not a good fit deal, it's not going to be a good fit for us as a company long-term. And that has, downstream impact on just all sorts of cycles. So, okay, we're going to shift the conversation just a little bit. And I want to talk to you guys as business leaders. And Rashmi, let's just start with you. I know you shared a little bit of a challenge that you're having with your team and some of the things around implementations, hitting certain, implications of hitting certain metrics, et cetera. So can you share with us, how you're arming your team with the skills to hit their quotas? It sounds like you've done a good job of kind of building in that team, but I'd love to understand a little bit more about what you're doing to kind of up level the skills of your teams and your CSMs.
Yeah, I think it's similar for Kevin and Madeline, but in terms of the incentives, our strategic CSMs have an NRR number. And before I joined, it was a rather hateful comp plan that they had, which was very punitive and gated. So if a 500K, they had $1 million number and a 500K customer churned, they had no way of making it up. And now there's no gates between renewals and expansions. The downside of that is that they can hit their number all in expansions without actually renewals. So the complexity that we're trying to solve for right now is how do we give them a lucrative comp plan that incentivizes driving revenue, but also gets them to focus on the renewal rate, which is a different number from their bookings target, which is a different number from on-time renewals versus late renewals. So right now it's dashboards on dashboards on dashboards. I haven't solved the problem yet, but we have Salesforce dashboards, we have Catalyst dashboards, and we have spreadsheets. So this is me sharing my skeletons, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. And, and it is interesting when we start looking at, and Karen, I'm just sitting here thinking, and Karen's our CMO, by the way, she's on, I would have to say that it sounds like comp plans is something we should just do a full-on hot take webinar on all by itself, right? I mean, it is something I think we all deal with every single day and trying to get through what does a variable comp plan look like for a CS team. I can't say I've ever heard of a hateful comp plan, but maybe we should kind of peel that layer back a little bit. So certainly something we can kind of dig into. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about today's pressure from boards, from our investors. Kevin, if you can start us off, how do you deal with some of the pressures tactically that you're getting as a leader, and then specifically around challenges your teams are facing around some of that growth and expansion motion? I know you've got your account management team that's kind of doing that, but you also have some CS function in there. So give us an idea of some of the challenges you're facing there.
Sure. So I live in northern Italy, which has some of the best wineries and vineyards in the world. So one tactic I use to deal with the pressure is consuming a lot of good wine. So maybe that's not a hot take for LinkedIn, but no. In all seriousness, it's working with the board and our leaders as a partnership. And Totango and DealFront have some shared investment, and I think, Chris, you would echo the statement that it's a productive and partnership style relationship. But one of the things that we've been really focused on, and it's not just for growth and expansion, but just confronting the challenges and pressure on NRR and gross churn. And one of the latest benchmark reports that came out for Europe, and again, DealFront does a lot of its business in Europe, NRR across companies went down about 6 points last year. And certain industries have felt that more, and DealFront was no exception to that. And if we look back also at the last question on some of kind of the challenges between sales and CS teams, one of the biggest things that we have is a misalignment on the ideal customer profile. And I'm sure how many people are on this? 155 participants. I'm sure all of the companies that you represent have an ICP defined somewhere. And my bet is it's on a PowerPoint slide somewhere, saved in an enablement repository or in a Google slide somewhere, and you train people on it when you join, but it literally impacts nothing else in the work that's being done. And we're trying to change that. And because the complexity of our go-to-market motion, we're acquiring companies through PLG selling motions, SLG selling motions, and the different types of use cases we have different like geographic applicability, and some product market fit makes sense in Germany and Nordics, but not so much in North America. So the types of customers we're bringing in is complex. And the reality is for us, not every euro of revenue is as valuable as the next. And so we've been undergoing this massive initiative, kind of inspired from our board, around how we really define our target segments and looking across key firmographic information, product usage data, buyer personas, We're looking at specific use case information to really understand the customers that renew, not just the customers that we're good at winning, but the customers that actually come up for renewal and maintain and grow with us. So through this, what we're trying to get to is a segment of customers that we want to win, that proactively, it's where marketing campaigns go, it's where outbound sales go, it's where we want to have CS coverage be optimized, it's where we want to have our account managers on for expansion. Then there's a cohort of revenue that we're happy to take. We don't proactively go after it, but we're happy to take it if it comes. And then there's another cohort of, we don't even want this revenue. Like, we should think twice before we even take this customer on. And if we have those types of customers already in our customer base, and I'm sure we do, we should be brave and maybe consider not even assigning CSMs to them and putting CSMs on the customers that have the highest propensity to renew and grow with us and get value from the products we have. So trying to orchestrate this across the go-to-market spectrum has been something we've been trying to do for the last 4 or 5 months. And I think this quarter is when it's going to start kind of popping for us. And there's a lot of different things that you can focus on in terms of like where you focus your marketing campaigns. Perhaps sales reps get like an incentive or a kicker for closing that top category versus the other one. So there's a lot that we'll be able to do once we define this. So sorry, that was a bit verbose, but
no, that's great.
About this area.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and nailing your ICP and taking the time, and that's kind of what you were referring to, right? Is really taking the time to look at the data and understand what is your ICP, not just what you want it to be, but what it is. What are the customers that are sticking around? What are the customers that are growing and are positively using and getting value out of your product? And then work backwards from there to understand, okay, this is who we need to focus on, because there are certain customers that are not your ICP, and so you have to figure out how to deal with those. You're not going to necessarily shun that revenue, but you definitely want to make sure you're not throwing resources after it when that doesn't make sense. So, Madeline, let's jump over to you. Kind of what are your challenges your team are facing around some of the growth and expansion motion?
Yeah, I can't resonate more with what Kevin was saying about that ICP, and in terms of how we're addressing it is, yes, we have we're very much an SMB business, and historically our product itself hasn't been as product led as it needs to be to support our customers at scale. And so we're going through a transformation, investing in digital customer success, more at the bottom of the market, and then also really thinking about, okay, how do we continue to retain our big hitters that will have a big impact on net retention if we lose them, but how do we be more selective about bringing them in if they're not the ideal profile? And what we're learning, and one of the conversations I've been having with my leaders and we'll be chatting with the board about is digital customer success and investing in a digital journey. Not only is that a partnership with product and automation and leveraging AI, but it also and an investment in your lower segment, but it's a net retention play across all segments. And so I'm really geeking out about what we're learning in terms of rolling out a digital customer success strategy about product insights, and not just is the customer using the product, but what aspects of the product are they using, and how can we double down on that to drive retention and think about growth as well. So of course, like many organizations, we've rolled out add-ons to combat just the organic downsell of accounts who aren't adding users like they were in 2021. And so my team is tasked with, here's an add-on, go sell it. And one of the things we're finding is that we haven't done enough to understand, okay, what is the story? What is the ICP of that add-on? And how can we look at product behavior to identify leads that then we can generate true qualified deals to sell that add-on into? And so that's one of the challenges is ICP, bottom of the market, top of the market, but then also how do we sell some add-ons, some new products, some new features in a way that's thoughtful and catering to driving that expansion revenue in a way that's going to help our customers be successful and help them scale. And one of the metrics we're looking at is not just the sheer expansion number, but also the average revenue per user, and understanding is the dollar amount of each user license, is that going up? Because if so, with macro environments improving, hopefully not on what, it depends what part of the world we're talking about, we will see our customer base expand. And that's much more durable than just the highs and lows of being really reliant on license additions or contractions. So those are some of our hot topics right now.
Yeah, no. That's fantastic. And it's interesting when you start thinking about the ICP and ICP specifically of different features, different functions, different, different add-ons, as you were saying, that in itself kind of unlocks a whole another level of focus and attention. And you mentioned digital, I mean, like digital CS and really kind of driving CS at scale is something that's been, certainly top of mind for us and for, the entire market for the last year. And so and as you mentioned as well, it's not something that's just for your long tail customers, right? That is a foundation that you use to kind of build on how you engage with all of your customer base, but you have to have the intelligence behind that to know what to do and where to do it and when to do it. So, Rashmi, thoughts from you on challenges you're facing around kind of growth expansion motions?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's all resonating, and it's comforting to hear similar challenges. On the ICP thing, one of the unique challenges that we have is now that we're part of Cisco, the benefit of this acquisition is that we're able to leverage the breadth and depth of Cisco's customer base. The downfall of that is that we are just embedded. ThousandEyes is just another line item on a very long list of a very long procurement list that a customer gets. And more often than not, customers don't know what ThousandEyes is when they've purchased it because we're just part of this big Cisco bundle. It's called seeding. And when you talk about ICP, I was laughing at Kevin's comment about being brave because we've got addicted on the new ACV side to this huge growth that's coming from these seeded deals. But on the CS side, it's all I hear is churn every time I hear a seeded deal because what's happening now is on the CS side, we have to run the entire sales cycle. We don't, I would love it if the sales cycle started with the trial, but it's starting with us as CSMs saying, hey, you have ThousandEyes, this is what ThousandEyes does, this is the cost of what you paid for it, even though you didn't pay for it. And so those are a new set of challenges, but we are experimenting with a incentive pilot similar to what Madeline said on a sales rep getting paid only when the customer is ramped. So first time to value, when we hit that, then that's when the sales rep would be paid. It's a small pilot, but we'll see what happens. But same problem, different names.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it is kind of comforting when we start looking and talking about some of the challenges we're having. We've got four different companies, represented here, and a whole lot in the other 155 that are listening, and we're all dealing with some of the same challenges. So it's kind of that, I don't want to say misery loves company because this is all fun, but I mean, it is good to know that we're all kind of working through some of the same challenges. We're going to jump into what my favorite part of the conversation, which is our hot takes quick fire section. We're going to keep it punchy and fast. So the goal is I'm going to ask a question. We're going to go around to each of the panelists, kind of get their quick hot take. And you can't duck out of these. So here we go. So question number one is 2024 the year of CS, the year of sales, or something else? Madeline, go.
I actually think it's the year of ICP. Picking up
Oh,
Kevin.
I think you're right. Okay, let's go, Rashmi.
I'm going to say the year of CS.
Year of CS?
Yes.
Perfect. And Kevin?
I was going to say CS, but I'll follow Madeline. Year of the ICP.
Nice.
The year of ICP. Well, it's brilliant. That's a great answer. Okay. Question number two. What is one thing that you would want to shift or do differently with respect to the renewal revenue management in your current company, and why? So, Madeline, we'll start with you again.
Pipeline visibility and discipline in my frontline managers.
Okay.
Got a lot of work to do there
Rashmi,
to align with pre-sales.
frontline with pre-sales.
Focusing, we want to get more sophisticated in our renewal management. We only have 3 stages in renewal management, so that's not indicative of a renewal sales process.
Got it. Kevin?
Similar to that is just more sophistication around the renewal process, which is dependent on the use case, the persona, and also the stage of their customer journey. Whether they're realizing success, whether they're kind of more of a passive user, whether they're in kind of a risky state, and how that's approached.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna jump on with you on that one because I think that's we're kind of in the same boat, right? It's understanding, the health and wellness of a customer, but also, where are you in that renewal cycle and how do we drive through that, in a process that makes a lot of sense and is streamlined and efficient. So good one. All right, so Kevin, we're going to come back to you first and go back the other way around the horn. So on this one, what is your definition of customer-led growth?
Just think it's putting the customer first to provide the foundation of your business results. Just
Okay.
simple as that.
Yeah. Rashmi.
One thing that we're doing is instead of trying to boil the ocean and help CSMs do expansions and renewals and everything, we're just arming them with discovery questions. For every single feature that comes out, these are questions to ask the customer if it's relevant or not, so that the customer can decide what's applicable and what's not, as opposed to just regurgitating new features that are coming out and upsell opportunities, more about that consultative sales process.
Awesome. That's a good one. Madeline, what about you?
Yeah, similar. I think it's selling solutions, not features, and having your customer identify the solutions and the pain points they have so you can sell against it.
Value-based selling, right? I mean, that's what it's about. All right, cool. So let's jump to the next question. So what is the most important skill for the CSMs or account managers on your respective teams? And so Rashmi, we're going to start with you this time. Most important skill.
I'd say it is you're by nature customer centric, but it's having that commercial background, because a lot of CSMs actually don't have a commercial background, and that's where they end up staying in the adoption phase and not moving towards closing.
Yeah, I echo that one. Madeline, what about you? You're nodding. So
Storytelling, which I think is part of effective commercial selling. You tell stories, you have a wealth of customer experiences at your fingertips, and you have to craft that into a story to sell into your customer base.
oh, that's a good one. Kevin?
Those are great responses. I would add effective communication. They sit in the center of interacting with so many internal stakeholders, whether it's new business sales, whether it's product teams, leadership, account management, if you have kind of customer sales teams, but also, of course, with the customers and everything that needs to be done, from onboarding to supporting customers going in the direction of achieving their desired goals and ambitions, and unfortunately, which never happens, dealing with any of the problems the customers have.
Never happens. Never happens.
Never.
No, of course. Perfect. All right, so we're jumping to our next question. Let's see. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you describe the level of support from marketing? We're bringing marketing into the mix now. We talked about product. So the support from marketing on driving your revenue goals. So Madeline, I'm going to kick it over to you first.
I have to say 10 because I have a tremendous partner in our director of customer marketing. She's a rock star, and we're in this together. So 10 over 10 here.
Awesome. Kevin, what about you?
On the new business side, it's good. I'd say 8 or a 9. On the customer side, I'm just going to say it's lower, and it's an area of investment that requires more attention.
Perfect. Rashmi, what about you?
In order to protect my job, I'm going to use Kevin's words and say it's lower on the customer side versus the business side.
Yep. And I would say, okay, so Karen's asking me to give an answer on our CSM marketing partnership. So, so I will go ahead and throw out. I mean, I would say that we're at like an 8+. I think that we've got a lot, and we've been through a lot with the recent merger. So there's a lot of things in play currently, as you can imagine, as we're kind of pulling two companies together. And so there's a lot happening there. But Karen and I couldn't be more aligned, quite frankly, in how and what we're doing as it relates to really supporting, our customers and driving growth through our customers and how we attain there. So, yeah, she gave me a love it, and that is awesome. So cool. I dodged the bullet. All right, cool. So let's jump on to the next one. And this is a question I love. So let's imagine we're in 2024, December of 2024. We're looking back over the year, and you want to see, like, what would you want to look back and see that has changed or improved across your team? So what would be a win for the year? Rashmi, let's start with you.
Well, given the amount of times, I guess for the CS team, I'd say a win is them understanding the process of pipeline generation and the 3x coverage and how to be across more teams. We have a great land and expand model, and right now in most of our customers, we're only in 1 or 2 teams. So if we could have more customers that are in 5+ teams, I'd say that's a huge win.
Awesome. Madeline, what about you?
I would say a very well-defined and executed customer journey for digital, and then a variation of that as we go up market. And what's important is that there's buy-in cross-functionally in that customer journey, and everyone understands it, not just the CS team.
Awesome. And the good news is you got a great product to help you with the digital journey.
Yes,
So we'll be glad to
Totango.
support you in that. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kevin, what about you?
Yeah, and back to my theme around ideal customers, it really is that by the end of this year that we have confirmed and that we've driven complete organizational alignment across our target customer segments, and that across the business we all agree what a good customer looks like and the type of revenue we want to be winning, how we facilitate that revenue and cater it in the best way, and that it's embraced across our product teams, our sales teams, and of course our customer teams.
All right, perfect. We are almost at time. I've got one question left, so we're going to get a quick round in, and then we'll wrap things up. So for each of you, the best piece of advice you've received as a go-to-market leader. Kevin, let's start with you.
There's a long story behind it. I know we don't have the time for it. It's kind of a backwards response. I had a situation where was selling a very large deal to a customer that we knew it was not going to deliver. And I had a sales leader that said, don't confuse selling with delivery. We sold this thing. The guy who bought it ended up getting fired because the project failed. And this is not a part of a selling and customer culture that I ever want to be a part of. And so this whole concept of just like selling is just like tricking a customer, getting it past them, get your win and move on, is not a culture I ever want to be a part of. So it's that kind of mindset is like the antithesis of where I want to be. So I want to work on delivering value to clients, and that we have a team that supports it. So that's advice that sent me in the other direction.
Awesome. Love that. Rashmi, what about you?
I guess it's very specific to my career, but Jane Fraser is the CEO of Citibank, and she talked about how when her boss told her, where do you want to be in the next 5 years? She said, I want to get promoted and then promoted and then promoted, and then I'll be here. And her boss said, instead of thinking about how to get that job, think about the skills that you need to get that job. And so she made a lot of lateral moves that no one really understood, and then became CEO. And the pivot for me was a very big and scary pivot to go from sales to customer success. But that piece of advice of just trying to learn new skills helped me make the jump. And so sharing that little tidbit.
That's a good one. All right, Madeline, what about you?
So my former Chief Customer Officer, Mary Nelson, gave me some advice around, as you get more senior into leadership, it's important to not be too nice, which sounds counter. So I'm from Minneapolis. We call it Minnesota nice. I'm a New Yorker, but Minnesota nice it's gotten me very far in terms of building relationships with my counterparts in sales and being pleasant to work with. But there's a certain point where you gotta have fight, and niceness isn't going to get you to that next level, especially as a woman in leadership.
All right.
So.
Awesome. No, great way to bring us home. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate the time that you have spent with us, and thank you, audience.